Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. Over the course of the past several days, I've been inundated with emails, Twitter DMs, Facebook messages, and private messages on Reddit, all posting links to various sources regarding the recent debacle surrounding Venturebeat's Dean Takahashi and his abortively horrendous gameplay of the upcoming game Cuphead, a platform that utilizes a 1930s art style. The reason behind the majority of messages I've been getting blasted with is that Dean's performance with Cuphead was severely subpar, and this has raised a very important question: how important is simple competency within a video game in relation to games media? And so I decided to take this as an opportunity to climb back on my soapbox and let everyone know my 2 cents worth on the topic. First, the question itself is, as with everything else, not nearly as simple as it would first appear, but also is it by no means a complicated one either. There are some instances where bad gameplay within games content is a detriment to the consumer, but it's not always the case. It comes down to the type of content being related. Now, I've admittedly released videos with poor gameplay in the past. Sometimes it was because I was just straight up horrible at the game. Other times because I felt like deliberately needling those that feel absolutely compelled to point out any flaw they might find within the gameplay itself or anywhere in the video, or if I didn't care about the gameplay in itself. In these instances, however, it was never during a review or any other video where the game itself was being showcased in any real way. The First Impressions videos, full reviews, and the Diamond Dev series are all examples of videos showcasing the game itself. Other videos like the Dirty Dev series or other industry commentary videos, I frankly didn't care as much about the gameplay because the footage on the screen was not intended to be the focus of the video itself. The vast majority of the time, it is a backdrop to the discussion that focused on the actions of an individual, the developers, or the publishers behind the game. Those videos are not intended to provide relevant facts about the game and its features to be able to persuade or dissuade a consumer from purchasing the product. In that instance, while I admit I should hold myself to a higher standard in that regard, I don't always do so. However, that only holds water when we're talking about content that follows along the lines of industry commentary and news in relation to those creating the products, not the products themselves. And when dealing with critique and reviews, those forms of content are specifically designed to present a product, its features, and its pros and cons to the consumer in order to influence their decision-making in regards to whether or not it is worth their money or their time. And when you're acting in such a capacity, it should be expected that you're at least capable of grasping the fundamental mechanics of the game being presented. And when we look at the article on Venturebeat written by Dean Takahashi, it was presented in what very much could be considered a first impressions critique, which, in spite of Dean's self-deprecating humor over his inept gameplay, should very much require a very simple aspect, and chief among them is the ability to grasp the fundamentals of the game, including, but not always limited to, the game's core mechanics or premise, any secondary game mechanics, and the tertiary aspects of the game itself. As an example, this would include as tertiary mechanics, character interactions, control schemes and layout, inventory and shop systems, and any minigames within the game proper, to name but a few. Now, I'm not saying you have to be an expert. Not only pro gamers should be able to critique games, but it is in those aspects, those fundamental requirements, that have to be portrayed, or at the very least identified, in order for a critic to be able to effectively relate the subject of their critique to their audience. As a critic, that is at the very core of the history of Dean Takahashi's career. Unfortunately, it has been demonstrably proven time and time again over the years that Dean constantly fails to grasp the fundamental mechanics of the game that he is reviewing. Dean reviewed the original Mass Effect game back in 2007 and lambasted the game as being too difficult, bordering on nearly impossible. It was evident from his review that he failed to grasp several aspects of the game or chose to flat out ignore them in order to provide a negative critique. He later issued an apology and admitted he had never even figured out how to make use of the skill points, which was the methodology for leveling the characters up. As a result, he portrayed an impression of that game to the consumers that was extremely negative, and it wasn't even due to there being anything wrong with the game itself, it was due to his own incompetence. He did the same thing when XCOM 2 first came out. His critique of that game, while not being quite as negative, still showed a fundamental lack of understanding in regards to the game's combat mechanics. This again led to a negative review that would color the perceptions of the game in the eyes of the reader. which again was not due to any fault with the game, of which there were many to choose from, but because Dean once again found himself utterly incapable of wrapping his head around how the game operated. And again, we see it here with Cuphead, a game that Dean found to be punishingly difficult, and he found himself completely stymied by the game's tutorial, even with instructions on what needed to happen being extremely visible and in no uncertain terms. Now, as I said previously, I've shown some bad gameplay footage. It happens from time to time, but that is mostly during a discussion piece surrounding the actions of the developer or the publisher, not as a critique or presentation of the game itself. And while it was stated that Dean himself was extremely tired when he played the game, at this point that excuse really doesn't hold water when faced with previous reviews written by him. And I can understand being tired and missing something that I later found to be obvious after I'd gotten some sleep. That said, I would never base my critique around gameplay made when my brain itself wasn't working properly. Critique requires a certain level of being able to be observant while playing the game, as well as being able to maintain an analytical mindset. If you realize that you're not able to provide the game your full attention, then how are you going to be able to provide accurate information to your viewers? And again, when presenting a game, you have to be able to show the core mechanics of the game in order to present factual, proper information to the consumer. Dean Takahashi has proven time and again over the past decade or more that he is utterly incapable of doing that he is incapable of grasping even the fundamentals of a simple platformer, to say nothing of a more complex game with multiple mechanics layered within it. Now, I'm sure Dean is a fine person, but as a games critic he is, from the perspective of this critic, incompetent at his job, and as such is far more a hindrance to the consumer than he is a help. He simply cannot understand the games he is reviewing, and that lack of understanding leads to misinformation being presented, which is more damaging than anything else. A game might be good, but you would never know it by reading one of his reviews. If you relied on the information he presented, then you would be directly misled. Not out of spite or with any malicious intent, but out of ignorance, which is not something that the consumers should be forced to rely upon for information when in regards to determining whether something is worth their time or their money. Now, in wake of this, it seems the internet has cinched up their boxing gloves and are willing to go rounds. One particular YouTuber who goes by the alias Kid Smoove, spelled with a V, received a DMCA strike for posting video content in regards to this, which some smaller channels are lambasting Venturebeat over. But it would seem that the video in question was an unaltered posting of a segment of the video with no commentary, no discussion, really nothing original being added at all. And in light of that information, I find myself actually siding with Venturebeat in regards to the DMCA to a certain extent. Now, those channels attacking Venturebeat over this action are claiming that you cannot DMCA gameplay footage because all gameplay is original and it is impossible to duplicate exactly, making each one a singular and unique experience. And in that, they would be absolutely correct. But it is that uniqueness and that personal experience aspect that makes unaltered gameplay footage from the Venturebeat video their own copyright. It is Takahashi's gameplay, and therefore legally it would be extremely difficult to prove an unaltered section of footage as transformative in any way. However, Venturebeat is not free from wrongdoing by issuing this DMCA claim, at least not entirely. As they are a news site that does make use of a digital platform, one would expect them to, at the very least, have a passing understanding with how the DMCA works, and as they do handle YouTube videos in particular, one would expect them to at least know the potential damage DMCA strikes have on a channel, regardless of guilt or innocence. In that, Venturebeat has definitely failed, as evidenced by Jeffrey Grubb, the individual that issued the DMCA strike in response to Kid Smoove on Twitter. And this sort of thing piling on to an already embarrassing situation actually makes me wonder if there is anyone competent working over at Venturebeat at all. Games journos will and have defended Dean over all of this, even making wild accusations of their own. However, the core issue here is Dean's level of competence has been demonstrably proven to being not up to the task for quite literally years. He may or may not be a talented journalist, I really have no idea, but he has no business being a games critic. Not after the numerous failures that have been demonstrated by him over the past decade and possibly even further. But as always, please do let me know what you think down in the comments below. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.